You've been trying, maybe for months, maybe longer. You've written the affirmations. You've visualized the life. You've done everything they told you to do, and still, nothing has changed. Not really. Not in the ways that matter, and somewhere deep. Inside, you've started to wonder if any of this actually works. Let me tell you something that most people never figure out. The problem isn't your vision. It's not your effort. It's not the universe ignoring you. The problem is where the signal is coming from. There are two parts of your mind working at the same time. The conscious mind, the part that thinks, that sets goals, that repeats affirmations, that watches videos like this one, and the subconscious mind, the part that runs beneath all of that. Silent, automatic, deeply rooted. Here's what nobody tells you clearly enough. Your conscious mind can want something with everything it has, and your subconscious mind can be quietly, steadily, completely convinced of the opposite. And when those two things conflict, the subconscious wins. Every time. Not because it's stronger, but because it's older. Because it's been shaped by years of experience, years of what you were told, years of what you felt, years of what you survived. Your subconscious doesn't care about what you want. It cares about what feels familiar. It cares about what matches the identity it's been running since you were a child. That's why you can repeat, "I am wealthy," 100 times a day and feel nothing shift, because the voice underneath that, the one you're not saying out loud, is saying something else entirely. This isn't real. This isn't me. This never works for people like me. That quiet voice is the one your nervous system listens to. That quiet voice is the one your reality is built around. Most people approach manifestation like placing an order. They write it down. They say the words. They try to feel excited. And then they go back to being exactly who they were before. But reality doesn't respond to orders. Reality responds to identity. Not what you ask for. What you are, or more precisely, what your deeper mind believes you are. Think about this for a moment. If you believed, truly believed, in every layer of your being that you were someone who always found a way, someone things naturally worked out for, someone who was already moving in the direction of something good, how would you walk through a room? How would you make decisions? How would you respond when something went wrong? You wouldn't panic. You wouldn't obsess. You wouldn't need to force anything because it would feel like the most natural thing in the world for good things to come to you. That feeling, that naturalness, is what manifestation actually requires. Not intensity, not desperation, not trying harder. Naturalness, and you can't fake naturalness at the level of the subconscious. You can fake it in your words. You can fake it in your journal, but your nervous system knows the difference between a wish and a knowing. A wish carries tension. It carries the feeling of absence, the feeling that what you want is somewhere out there far from you, and you're reaching for it with your whole body and still coming up short. A knowing is different. A knowing feels settled. It feels like patience without passivity. Like certainty that doesn't need to be loud. Like someone who has already decided and is simply watching things unfold. Most people never reach that state because they've never examined what their subconscious actually believes about them. They've never sat quietly enough to hear it, and so they keep trying from the surface. Affirmation after affirmation, vision board after vision board, technique after technique. And beneath all of it, the old identity sits untouched, unmoved. Running the same program it's always run. That program was written early. Long before you had the awareness to question it. It was written in the voice of people around you, in the experiences that shaped your sense of self, in the moments where you tried and it didn't work, in the times you were told, directly or indirectly, who you were and what was possible for you. And your mind did what minds do. It believed them. Not because you were weak, but because that's what minds do when they're young, and the world is the authority. So now you carry those beliefs like invisible weight. You don't see them, but you feel them every time something good gets close and something in you pulls back. Every time an opportunity appears and something in you says, not yet, not me, not really. Every time you start to rise and something in you quietly finds a reason to bring you back down to a level that feels safe. That's not weakness. That's not failure. That is your subconscious doing exactly what it was built to do, keeping you inside the identity it recognizes as you. The problem is that identity was built from a version of your life that no longer exists, from a version of you that no longer exists. And yet your mind is still running that file, still protecting it, still making sure every experience confirms it. This is why people stay stuck, not because they don't want change, but because the part of them that creates reality doesn't believe the change is real. Desire lives in the conscious mind. Identity lives in the subconscious. And until they match, until what you want and what you believe about yourself are pointing in the same direction, you will keep experiencing the tension between them. You will keep getting so close and pulling back. You will keep working hard and wondering why the results don't match the effort. This is not about trying harder. This is about going deeper. This is about doing something most people are never willing to do, questioning the self they've always assumed they were. Because here's the truth. The self you think you are is not fixed. It was never fixed. It was built, piece by piece, experience by experience, belief by belief. And if it was built, it can be rebuilt. Not by forcing it, not by pushing against it, but by slowly, consistently, deliberately feeding your deeper mind a different story. A story it begins to recognize as real. That process, that slow, patient, intentional rewiring is what the next part of this is going to show you. But first, stay with what you just heard. Let it land. Because the moment you understand that the source of your results is not your actions but your identity, everything changes. So now you understand the problem, the conflict, the gap between what you consciously want and what your subconscious has been quietly believing your entire life. But understanding it is only the first step, because knowing the problem exists doesn't dissolve it. Awareness alone doesn't rewrite years of programming. What rewrites it is something much more specific, much more intentional, and far more powerful than anything you've been taught to do. Let's start with something most people completely misunderstand about the subconscious mind. It doesn't think. It doesn't reason. It doesn't weigh options or evaluate logic. It feels. It records. It repeats. Your subconscious mind is essentially a pattern machine. It takes in what it experiences often enough, with enough emotional weight, and it begins to treat that as reality. Not as a goal, not as a possibility, as reality. This is important, because it means the way you change it is not through logic. It's not through motivation. It's not through understanding how the mind works on an intellectual level. You change it through feeling, through repetition, through experience, real or imagined, that carries enough emotional charge to register as truth. Let that sit for a moment. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between something you vividly imagine and something you physically experience. When the feeling is real, when your body responds, when something shifts inside you, the deeper mind records it, files it, begins to build around it. This is why visualization done correctly is not fantasy. It's rehearsal. It's identity construction. It's you deliberately feeding your deeper mind a version of reality that it will eventually start to protect and seek out, the same way it once protected the old story about you. But here is where most people get it wrong. They visualize from the outside. They picture the house, the car, the numbers in the account, the external image of a life they want, and that's not enough, because the subconscious doesn't live in images. It lives in feelings. It lives in the internal experience of being someone. So the question isn't, what do I want to have? The question is, who do I need to become to naturally exist inside that life? How does that person feel when they wake up in the morning, not excited, not desperately hopeful, settled, grounded, moving through their day with a quiet sense of direction and worth? That feeling, that inner atmosphere, is what you are training, not the outcome, the identity that produces the outcome. Because outcomes are just reflections. They are what happens when someone consistently occupies a certain inner state. You don't chase the reflection, you change what's standing in front of the mirror. And this is where the work gets real. This is where it stops being comfortable. Because most people are willing to visualize a life, but they are not willing to let go of the identity they've been holding on to. There is a version of you that has become comfortable even in its suffering, even in its lack, even in its limitation, because at least it's familiar. At least it's known. At least it doesn't require you to become someone you've never been before. Change is not just exciting. Change is threatening to the part of you that was built to survive by staying the same. And so the resistance you feel, the procrastination, the self-doubt, the sudden tiredness when you try to do the inner work, that is not laziness. That is your nervous system protecting the identity it knows. Understanding this changes how you approach it. You stop fighting yourself. You stop calling yourself weak for resisting, and you start doing something far more effective. You start introducing the new identity, slowly, gently, consistently, not forcing a complete transformation overnight, but feeding the subconscious small, repeated experiences of who you are becoming. Think of it like water on stone. One drop changes nothing, but the same drop returning to the same place day after day, year after year, carves through solid rock. Your mind works the same way. One moment of genuine feeling in a new identity plants a seed. Repeated consistently with real emotional presence, that seed becomes a root, and roots become the foundation everything else is built on. So what does this look like? In practice, it looks like stillness. Before the noise of the day begins, before the world tells you who you are, you sit with yourself and you choose. You choose the version of you that already has what you're moving toward, not desperately, not with clenched fists and pleading, but with the calm certainty of someone who knows it's already in motion. You feel into that person. You breathe as that person. You let your body settle into that state for long enough that it starts to feel less foreign. And then you open your eyes and you carry that feeling into how you speak, how you decide, how you respond when the day pushes back. Not perfectly, not without moments where the old voice returns, but with intention, with a direction, because here's what repetition does over time. It lowers the resistance. The first time you sit in the feeling of a new identity, it might feel completely unreal, like wearing clothes that belong to someone else. The 10th time, it feels slightly more familiar. The 50th time, your nervous system stops resisting it. The 100th time, it starts to feel like you, and the moment it starts to feel like you, your behavior shifts without effort. Your decisions shift without force. The way you hold yourself in a room, the way you respond to setbacks, the things you tolerate, the things you walk away from, all of it shifts. Because identity is the root of all behavior, and behavior is what creates results. This is the sequence: identity first, feeling second, behavior third, results last. Most people try to work from the end backward. They chase result. Shopping results will make them feel worthy. They change behavior, hoping behavior will eventually feel natural. But it never does, not without the identity underneath it, because behavior built on a false foundations is exhausting, it's performance. And performance can only be sustained for so long before the real identity pulls you back. This is why people go in cycles. They have a breakthrough, they feel momentum, they start to believe something is changing, and then, quietly, without even noticing it, they drift back to the old patterns, back to the old responses, back to the old version of themselves that never stopped running beneath the surface. It's not failure, it's a signal. It's your deeper mind telling you the identity work isn't finished yet, so you return to it. Calmly, without judgment, and you do it again. Feeling, repetition, patience. These are not soft words. These are the mechanics of psychological transformation. These are what actually move the needle in the deepest part of you. And that deepest part, once it shifts, changes everything above it. Your thoughts, your words, your posture, your relationships, your results. All of it reorganizes around the new identity the way water finds its level. Naturally, without force. That's what the final part of this is going to bring you into. The full integration. The moment where the shift stops being a practice and starts being who you simply are. Stay with this, let it settle. Because something in you already knows this is true. You've come far enough now to understand something most people never will. That the life you've been trying to build from the outside can only be sustained from the inside. That the version of you who has what you want, who lives how you want to live, who moves through the world with that quiet certainty, that version of you is not a future destination. It is an internal decision, and decisions don't require permission, they don't require proof, they don't require the outside world to change first. They only require one thing, that you stop waiting to feel like yourself after the results arrive and start feeling like yourself right now. This is the shift. This is the exact place where everything either continues the way it has been or becomes something different. Most people are waiting to feel worthy until they see evidence, waiting to feel confident until something confirms it, waiting to feel like the person they want to be until the world gives them permission to become that person. But the world doesn't grant permission. The world reflects. It reflects back what you have already decided about yourself. It mirrors the signal your deeper mind is constantly broadcasting. And if that signal is still carrying the frequency of someone who is waiting, someone who is hoping, someone who is trying, the reflection will always show you more waiting, more hoping, more trying. The signal has to change first, not after. First. And changing the signal is not about pretending. It's not about forcing a smile over real pain. It's not about lying to yourself about where you are. It's about something far more precise than that. It's about choosing which truth you give your attention to. Because here's what is real. Right now, two things are true simultaneously. The current external reality. What you can see, what you can measure, what hasn't changed yet. And the internal reality. Who you are capable of being, what your mind is, able to hold, what your nervous system is able to learn to call normal. Both are real, but only one of them is permanent. The external reality is always temporary. It is always the result of what has already been, the echo of a signal, already sent. The internal reality is where the next signal is being created, right now, in this moment, in how you choose to feel, in what you choose to rehearse, in the identity you choose to inhabit before the proof arrives. This is not blind optimism. This is not ignoring reality. This is understanding that creators don't wait for conditions. Creators decide. And then they hold that decision with enough consistency that the conditions have no choice but to rearrange. So what does it mean to hold a decision? It means that when doubt comes, and it will come, you don't treat it as truth, you treat it as weather. Something that passes, something that has no authority over what you have decided at a deeper level. It means that when the old patterns surface, the old smallness, the old hesitation, the old voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" you don't collapse into them. You notice them, you breathe through them, and you return, not with force, with steadiness, because the person you are becoming is not someone who has no doubt. They are someone who has learned not to be controlled by it. That is the real transformation. Not the absence of fear, not the absence of uncertainty, but a relationship with those things that no longer gives them the power to stop you. And that relationship is built through the same process you've been hearing throughout this: feeling, repetition, return. Every time you feel into the identity and then lose it and return to it anyway, you are building something. You are building the psychological muscle of someone who doesn't quit on themselves, and that muscle over time becomes your default. The version of you who used to spiral when things didn't move fast enough starts to become the version of you who trusts the process without needing to control it. The version of you who used to shrink in the presence of opportunity starts to become the version of you who leans in, quietly, naturally, without performing. This is not a dramatic overnight shift. This is something far more profound than that. This is you slowly becoming unrecognizable to the version of yourself that was stuck, and the world around you will feel that before you even have to say a word. People respond to identity, not to what you tell them about yourself, to what you silently broadcast, to the energy of someone who has made a decision and is living inside it. Opportunities respond to identity, not to how hard you're trying, to how aligned your inner world is with what you say you want. Your own mind responds to identity. When the subconscious finally accepts the new story, when it stops filtering out evidence that contradicts the old one, you start to notice things you never noticed before. Doors that were always there, people who were always around. Moments that were always available. You didn't create them. You became someone who could finally see them. That is manifestation, not magic, not mystery. Identity, alignment. The right things don't come to the person who wants them most desperately. They come to the person who has become the natural match for them. And you become that match through the inner work, through the quiet, unglamorous, profoundly powerful practice of deciding who you are before the world confirms it. So let this be the moment, not tomorrow, not when things feel easier, not when you have more evidence. Now, right now, something in you is capable of deciding that the old story is done, not dramatically, not with a declaration to anyone else, just a quiet internal shift, a settling, a turning, the kind of turning that doesn't announce itself. It just moves differently, responds differently, chooses differently. Starting today, when you sit with yourself, even for 5 minutes, even in the middle of noise, you return to the feeling, not the image of what you want, the feeling of who you are when you already have it. The steadiness, the ease, the quiet confidence of someone who stopped chasing and started being. And every time you return to that feeling, you are sending a new signal. Every time you hold it a little longer than yesterday, you are rewriting a pattern. Every time you choose it over the old familiar doubt, you are becoming someone new, not someone perfect, not someone who never struggles, but someone whose foundation has changed, and a changed foundation changes everything built on top of it. Your thoughts will change. Not because you force them, because the ground they grow from is different now. Your decisions will change. Not because you discipline yourself into them, because the person making them sees themselves differently. Your results will change. Not because you worked harder, because the identity generating them has finally aligned with what you actually want. This is the work. This is the real work. Quiet, internal, patient. And it is the only work that produces results that actually last, because anything built on a foundation that hasn't shifted will eventually collapse back to the level the subconscious believes is home. But anything built from a genuinely transformed identity, from a self-concept that has been slowly, deliberately, deeply rewired, that stands. That becomes your new normal, and your new normal is what you once called the life you were trying to manifest. Let that land. You were never meant to chase it. You were meant to become it. And that becoming starts now, not with action, not with effort, with a decision, made quietly, held firmly, lived daily. That is how you fix your mind. That is how manifestation actually works. And that is who you are becoming.